Right here with Mr. Michael Erwin, one of the founders of the BB-8 Builders Club. What do you got there in your hands, Michael?
This is the dome panel 1 and the third for BB-8 for the files that Tiny and I worked on.
Yeah, talk a little bit about how that happened, how you guys did some of the R&D on the dome files for BB-8.
It started off with Tiny drawing it up as a 3D model of BB-8, and but instead of just having the 3D model, we decided, he and I started talking and decided that we'd make them actually into 3D parts, so that as builders we could actually assemble it versus just print it. And that also allowed us to make the parts small enough that would fit on most modern medium-sized 3D printers. In this case, these are my MakerBot Replicator 2s. They fit fine on that, and they fit fine on like the FlashForge Creator Pro and obviously Ultimaker 2s. So we designed the parts collaboratively, and what was cool is Tiny is 12 hours ahead of in the Philippines than I am in West Virginia. So Tiny would work on a part, send it to me, I'd test print it out, and look at what things need to change, things like making the panel lines a little larger, a little deeper, putting magnets into the dome parts, molding those holes into play, and then I would give that feedback to Tiny at 9-10 o'clock at night, which was his 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And then so he would work on it during the day, and then when I would get up, it would be 7 or 8 o'clock his time, and it would be 7 or 8 o'clock West Virginia time, and we'd trade information back and forth. So we basically had non-stop 24-hour iterations going every few hours. So some things changed dramatically as we developed, some things didn't. Some things we're still kind of tweaking. Right now we're tweaking on the body. The last panels we're working on is the triangles, and so that they actually overlap as well, so that they fit smoother around the entire and interlock on the entire body sphere.
And you got half a body sphere right here.
Yeah, this is a body sphere. This is the 1/2-inch California Quality Plastics body sphere in acrylic. One of the things we noticed real quick was going to be we needed a perfectly smooth hemisphere, and the same thing with we found a company that makes these custom perfectly matched hemispheres. They come out to be 506 millimeters, and worked with Steele and Carl to come up with a jig that holds the hemisphere and allows you to drill the 1-inch deep holes perfectly into the hemisphere. And in this case, you strap it down, the sphere doesn't move at all. It's just a perfect fit. So the files to make the jigs are in the public share for the files, and we've already released all the dome files, so there's no changes to those.
And that includes some of the inner mechanisms that's going to hold the dome onto the body with magnets, correct?
Correct. So on the inside of the dome,
and here's a finished dome here.
Here's a finished dome here. You'll see that there's 3 wheels, but there's actually 4 magnets. There's a magnet, a 3/4-inch magnet in between each one of these, and then there's one central magnet, 2-inch diameter, 1.5-inch diameter. So together they have about 300 pounds of magnetic pull, but when you couple that with the arm that goes inside of inside the sphere from what we call the hamster, they actually just attract themselves, and this is about as close as I can get before I can't control it. They pull to
it'll
themselves.
Be stuck on there.
Yeah, it'll be stuck on there. And so the attraction is everything rides on these
wheels.
These Omnicasters. Once you work them a little bit, they get really smooth, and they get really smooth when there's a lot of weight on them. if you don't have any weight on them, they feel really rough. But once you put them one on the inside of the sphere and then the dome on the outside, it runs very smooth on the dome. Matter of fact, it'll actually run over these straps just fine.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about the dome, like some of the different iterations. I think you went with this is the 14th version of the dome?
This is the 14th version of some of the parts we've actually got up to 15 and 16 now. But one of the things we came to the conclusion first, we was going to make it so that everything assembled on the bottom, and you can still assemble from the bottom, and then use the dome skirt actually fits into the dome ring and snaps into place. But eventually it'll be glued in when you're ready to finalize it. So the dome panel, or what we call the lower ring, the magnet mount, the dome magnet mount, this piece here, actually rides on an inner dome plate so that you can adjust the height of the dome in relation to the how it floats above the sphere. And so you change out these 6 standoffs to how high you want. So an 1.25 inch standoff gives you about a 3/8 of an inch, float. So it floats above the sphere, and this piece here magically just kind of disappears into the shadows. And then the dome top itself is magnetic, so there's little magnets on there you can see on that, and you can see inside, well, the upper dome plate, and you can see that the 3 acorn nut covers
drill into the magnet holder in the bottom.
Yeah, they go into the magnet holder on the standoffs on it, and then on the outside is the screws that hold it into place.
And then all of these are available, STL files available to the public through the BB-8 Builders Club.
Yeah, the BB-8 Builders Club, we released all the files as Creative Commons open source, so you can take the files and customize them to however you want, or scale them up or scale them down. We made the body files are almost finished. Like I said, we're working on the triangles, and once we release the triangles, they're in the beta test now. So we have an iteration. We've got a couple of builders with printers that are longtime builders. I'll do the first test. Once I think they're ready, we release them to the 4 alpha testers, and once the 4 alpha testers say yes, they work the way we expect it to, and any notes that we need to make, then we release it to about a group of 20 builders, and they do the test. And once they get done, give them a couple weeks to print out the files, then we release them to the public.
Great. Talk a little about how's the inner mechanism going to control the dome.
Oh.
Now you talked a little bit about the hamster robot, which is going to make it roll, but how does the dome move? Or how eventually will it move?
The dome's actually going to have, on the hamster, we'll have 2 motors on the outside, 165 RPM, heavy duty, 12 volt DC motors. They'll ride on the outside of the hamster, just like how the Sphero does, except we're going at a higher mount point. So if the sphere was upside down, literally the hamster would be setting right here at the top. Matter of fact, the bottom of the drill jig is actually the hamster. So that's the piece that comes out of here you can actually use to mount all the parts to. So it'll ride on that. It'll just run like you normally have, a tank 2-channel mechanism. So one motor and one motor controller controls one side, one controls the other. Then in the middle of the hamster coming up is the arm. And the arm uses a really simple concept, another 165 RPM motor going into a 6-inch piece of aluminum tube that's on pillow block bearings, and what we call the body magnet mount will actually go in here and clamp in, and then that'll come up and run the
dome. So it'll move front and back and spin.
Right, it spins the easy part. Just this motor controls the spin. What you don't see here is in the hamster, underneath the hamster, there's a linear actuator that comes up and goes onto another 3D printed part that gets bolted into the arm, and then that comes out and connects to the linear actuator. So the linear actuator is actually in the bottom, coming up through the hamster. And then that allows very little weight other than this and the body magnet mount. That's the only weight on the top of the hamster. All the batteries, all the heavier, the charging, induction charging system, all is in the bottom and will ride on that pivot of the hamster.
Very clever. And these are all going to be easily sourced parts, right?
Yeah, we've really tried to make sure that
aside from the 3D printed parts.
Aside from the 3D parts, all of the parts are coming from Servo City. They're all Actibotics. We've tried to make it as simple to maintain as possible. Of course, builders are going to have to occasionally get in and work on things, but we've tried to make it as bulletproof as possible, so that, you know, literally a couple $100 for all the parts for the inside of the hamster from Servo City, and we're good.
And when you're done, you're going to have a bill of materials, a BOM, basically. Here's all the hardware you need to buy in order to build your hamster robot.
Right, and so we've got the BOM now that's in the documentation on the magnet mount arms and the dome magnet mounts, and we've started building out the BOM that we